Hello, I'm United States Senator Saxby Chambliss, and thanks for tuning in to our weekly YouTube address. This week in the United States Senate, we've got a myriad of issues that we've been dealing with. One of the focuses of the attention of both Senator Isaacson and myself is the issue of Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae and the uncalled for bonuses that have been paid out over there at these GSEs when our real estate industry in this country is totally underwater. It certainly was the major cause of the financial crisis that erupted in 2008, with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac being right in the middle of that. And here we are seeing the executives at those two entities receiving huge bonuses, and it has not set well with Senator Isaacson nor me. And we have expressed our displeasure along with a number of other of our colleagues on both sides of the aisle. And we're going to continue to monitor that until we make sure that we get to the bottom of it and even look at not only restructuring those two entities, but maybe even totally eliminating those entities. Another issue that's been very much at the forefront this week is the nuclear weaponization of Iran. As the Vice Chairman of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, I get briefed daily about what's going on inside of Iran, and I've been concerned for the last several years over the movement of the Iranian government towards the manufacture of a nuclear weapon. I'm more concerned today than I ever have been. We have a government who, a country whose government officials gets up every morning and announce to the world that their single goal in life is to obliterate one of our friends, namely Israel. We've got to make sure that we do everything within our power to ensure that Iran does not get a nuclear weapon. But frankly, at this point in time, I am very, very concerned that they are headed in that direction. And who knows what that may bring on. But that issue is very much at the forefront this week because of a new report that's come out of the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Authority, and that entity has expressed some real concern about some of the actions of the Iranian government relative to low-enriched uranium that's being moved into a facility that may allow them to continue to enrich that uranium to a point where it comes available as fissile material for a nuclear weapon. Right now, the major issue facing America continues to be at the forefront here, and that's the issue of the financial crisis that we find ourselves in. As we look across the Atlantic Ocean and see what's happening with our friends in Europe, it's pretty disturbing, especially when we know and understand that there are many financial institutions in America that have significant investments in countries that are members of the European Union. When we look at what's happening in Greece, in Italy, in Spain, and in Portugal, there's every reason for America to be concerned about the fact that if those countries do not make it from a financial standpoint, that America could be next. That being said, we still have a window of opportunity in this country to right our financial ship and get our house in order and begin retiring this massive $14.5 trillion debt that's staring us in the face. I think all of you know that I've been working very hard over the last year and a half to develop a plan for a way forward with respect to how we address this issue. It's been controversial, and I don't mind taking the arrows that have been slung my way because I am not about to do nothing when it comes to the fact that we may be the first generation of Americans to leave this country to our children and grandchildren in worse shape than the great America that we inherited. And let me just tell you, we are fast headed in that direction. So I do remain concerned about it, and I'm going to continue to work hard to do everything in my power to make sure that we do get our physical house in order in America. We know that the Super Committee is going to be reporting back to Congress on the 23rd of November. That's required by the statute that was put into law at the time the debt ceiling was raised the 1st of August of this year. We know that we then have a 30-day period within which to take an up or down vote on the recommendation of that Super Committee for how we move forward with respect to the reduction of our debt. I'm not sure what that committee is going to do. I have been very much involved from a conversation standpoint with members of the committee. I was a part of a group that made a presentation to the committee and made some recommendations on how they should proceed. The so-called Gang of Six is the group that made that presentation, and in a bipartisan way, we expressed to the committee that if we're truly going to solve this problem, you've got to cut spending. There's no question about that. We're spending way too much money in Washington. But that is not a silver bullet, and that in and of itself won't solve our problem. We also have to address the issue of entitlements. Social Security and Medicare are going broke. We've got to save those valuable programs, and there are ways that we can do it without impacting current beneficiaries. That needs to be addressed. And then the issue of revenues, which are at an all-time low relative to GDP in our country today, has got to be addressed. That does not mean raising taxes. I've never voted for a tax increase, never plan on voting for one, but we have got to make sure that we are putting in place policies that will energize our economy, broaden the base of taxpayers by the creation of jobs in the private sector, not the government, but in the private sector. And when we broaden that tax base by putting people back to work and creating new jobs in the private sector, we can see those revenues coming into the government increase, and that's without one single dime of tax increase. It's a very serious issue that's facing us, and I am hopeful that the Super Committee will be able to come up with a very positive recommendation, and I'm going to continue to work hard every single day to try to inject the right kind of ideas that I think are best for America and for Americans in that respect. Let me just close by saying that there's an economic engine in Middle Georgia called Robins Air Force Base that is part of a restructuring that's taking place in the United States Air Force today. Along with our colleagues from Oklahoma and Utah, Senator Isaacs and I are working very closely with the Air Force to make sure that when we do restructure our air logistics centers or our military depots, that we do so in the right way, and that we do so in a way that's going to allow for the efficiencies which the Air Force needs to pay their fair share of the savings that have to come from the Department of Defense if we're going to make sure that we get our financial house back together, but at the same time does not interfere with our ability to have a turnaround on the airplanes that come into Robins Air Force Base and are given back to the warfighter in the time in which required and at a quality that means that we'll continue to have the world's strongest military. So we're working very closely to make sure this is done in the right way and with the least pain on the Air Force, which means the least pain for our men and women who wear the uniform of the United States of America. We'll look forward to staying in touch with you and to visiting with you again next week with additional issues that will be before the United States Senate. Thank you, and may God bless you.